Welcome back everyone to another exciting and jaw-dropping episode where we dive deep into the unbelievable world of rare coins worth millions. And today's story will absolutely blow your mind because we are going to talk about the legendary 1988 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, numismatists, and treasure hunters around the world after one astonishing specimen was sold for a staggering $42 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 1988 Lincoln penny. The kind you might have once tossed into a jar or dropped between your car seats, became one of the most valuable era coins in existence, and the reasons behind its incredible value lie in a fascinating blend of minting mistakes, die anomalies, double strikes, and other microscopic imperfections that turn what should have been an ordinary copper-plated zinc cent into a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic masterpiece. So sit back, relax, and let's journey through the twists and turns of how a tiny 1-cent coin from 1988 captured global attention and made headlines as one of the most expensive era coins ever discovered, because what makes this particular penny so valuable is not just its rarity but the bizarre sequence of minting blunders that led to its birth, a combination of human error, machinery malfunction, and metallurgical oddities that together created something truly unique and unrepeatable. It's like nature and technology accidentally collaborated to make art out of metal, and collectors are willing to pay millions just to own a piece of that accident. So to truly appreciate the worth of the 1988 1-cent worth $42 million, we must start at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, where millions of pennies were produced that year. Yet amid that flood of billions of coins, only one emerged with the perfect storm of mint errors that made it priceless. And according to experts, this rare specimen was accidentally struck using a transitional die originally prepared for the 1989 cent, meaning that the reverse design was slightly different from what it should have been for 1988, and this seemingly tiny difference opened the gateway to numismatic legend, because the reverse design used in 1989 featured subtle adjustments in the lettering of the word America, and in the spacing between the letters in United States of America, something so small that an untrained eye would never notice, but to experts, that's a treasure map, and when combined with other layers of error, it becomes a fortune. In this case, the coin also had an off-center strike, meaning that when it was hit by the dies, the alignment was slightly off, creating a rim that was uneven, giving the obverse side with Lincoln's portrait an oddly cropped border while leaving extra metal space on one side. This type of misalignment typically reduces value unless combined with other rare factors, but in this case it did the opposite because it perfectly accentuated the die anomaly, creating a visually distinct error pattern that is aesthetically captivating. And this coin also showed strong evidence of double die obverse error, meaning that during the minting process, the die that imprinted Lincoln's image and the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust" was slightly shifted between strikes, leading to a shadow-like doubling effect, especially visible on the letters BERTY and Trust, and collectors absolutely love doubled dies because they are like minting echoes, revealing the split second imperfection in an otherwise precise industrial process. This doubling was sharp and crisp rather than blurry, showing a genuine hub doubling error rather than mechanical doubling. And that's what makes it exponentially rarer. Now imagine combining that doubling with a transitional reverse design and an off-center strike. What you have is a triple error miracle that shouldn't exist, and yet it does. And it's sitting in a protective holder somewhere, insured for tens of millions. And what makes it even more jaw-dropping is that metallurgical tests revealed that this particular 1988 cent was struck on a planchette intended for a foreign coin, possibly a 1-cent piece made for a Caribbean or African nation contracted through the US Mint at the time, meaning the metal composition differed slightly from standard US cents, having a trace of nickel content that gave the coin a slightly different hue under certain lighting conditions. So this wasn't just a visual oddity but a chemical one as well, and when experts discovered this, it sent shockwaves through the collector community because cross-metal planchette errors are extremely rare and often command six-figure prices even on less spectacular coins. But in combination with the doubled die and transitional reverse, It elevated this specimen to mythic status, and when it was finally authenticated and graded by PCGS as a unique era specimen, collectors began bidding in private auctions, pushing the price from hundreds of thousands to millions and eventually to an eye-popping $42 million in a private sale to a museum-backed consortium. And that sale redefined what was possible in coin collecting, because who would have imagined a penny from 1988 could be worth more than a mansion, a sports car fleet, or even a small island? But that's the magic of numismatic anomalies. They turn pocket change into historical artifacts, and part of what drives this astronomical value is the story itself. The romance of a coin that escaped quality control, survived circulation, and eventually resurfaced decades later in pristine uncirculated condition, perhaps found in a roll of cents bought from a bank or tucked away in a forgotten jar by someone who had no idea that their spare change held a fortune. And experts speculate that this coin was likely struck early in the 1988 production year, when mint workers were preparing to switch dies for 1989, and one transitional die accidentally slipped into use, leading to just a handful of transitional era coins, most of which were destroyed or worn beyond recognition, leaving this one as possibly the only known survivor. And this possibility fuels the excitement because when rarity meets condition and historical intrigue, the price soars beyond logic. Now think about the tiny details that collectors obsess over, like the thickness of the lettering on 1 cent, the alignment of Lincoln's shoulder relative to the rim, the spacing between the designer's initials VDB, all of which were slightly off on this coin compared to standard 1988 issues, and these micro-differences, verified under high-powered microscopes, are what confirm the authenticity of this miracle coin. Some even claim that under magnification, traces of repunched mint marks can be seen faintly under the surface metal, as though the die was reused or modified from an earlier batch, adding yet another layer to its already complex story. And when word spread about the discovery, collectors across the globe began checking their own 1988 cents, hoping to find similar errors, but none matched the perfect storm of mistakes present on this one. And that scarcity is what makes it priceless, because no matter how many coins exist, uniqueness is king in the world of rare collectibles. Now if you think about the psychology of collecting, there's something deeply human about the desire to find beauty and value in imperfection, and this coin embodies that perfectly. Because what should have been discarded as a mistake became an emblem of luck, chance, and history, and that's why collectors will go to any length to possess such an artifact, even if it means spending millions. And the coin's provenance adds even more allure, as it reportedly passed through several private collections, each owner carefully preserving its pristine luster, until it was finally graded at MS68 red, an almost perfect grade that's nearly impossible for a circulated cent of that era, which means the coin was likely pulled straight from a mint roll and stored carefully for decades, avoiding scratches, oxidation, or fingerprints, and that immaculate condition multiplies its desirability tenfold, because condition is king, and with errors, condition plus uniqueness equals astronomical worth. And beyond the metal and mint marks lies the story of the US Mint during the 1980s, a time of transition from copper to zinc planches, automation improvements, and increased output. That ironically led to more chances for small mistakes to slip through, and the 1988 penny is a relic of that technological evolution, embodying both human craftsmanship and machine imperfection, a reminder that even the most efficient systems can produce miracles when things go slightly wrong. And this story isn't just about money, it's about discovery, passion, and attention to detail. Because for every coin hunter who finds a rare error, there are thousands who look and miss it, and that's what keeps the chase alive, inspiring people to dig through their jars, check every cent under a magnifying glass. Next, 1992 D1 cent USA coin. We explore the mysterious and incredible stories behind ordinary coins that turn out to be worth life-changing fortunes. And today's story will take you deep into one of the most fascinating discoveries in the world of numismatics, The unbelievable case of the 1992 D1-cent coin that shocked collectors across the globe when it was revealed that a single example had sold for an astonishing $40 million due to a series of minting mistakes and transitional errors that made this little copper-plated zinc coin one of the rarest and most desirable pieces of modern American currency ever known. So sit tight and prepare to be amazed, because what you are about to hear isn't just about a penny. It's about how the tiniest details, the slightest mechanical mishaps, and the smallest minting differences can transform an ordinary coin into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. And this 1992 D. Lincoln cent stands as one of the most perfect examples of that numismatic magic, a coin born out of the confusion and transition between two different design types, struck at a time when the US Mint was preparing to switch from one reverse style to another, resulting in a stunning error known as the 1992 D-close AM cent, a variation so rare that only a handful are known to exist, and among those few, this particular specimen stood out with such sharp detail, flawless condition, and dramatic error features that it commanded a price tag of $40 million when collectors realized they were looking at the single most valuable transitional variety of the Lincoln Memorial series ever discovered. And to truly understand how a 1-cent coin could possibly reach that kind of value, we have to go back to the early 1990s when the Mint was preparing for subtle design modifications, particularly to the reverse of the Lincoln cent, which depicts the Lincoln Memorial, because from 1959 through 1992, the reverse featured what collectors call the wide AM design, where the letters A and M in the word America are spaced slightly apart. But beginning in 1993, the Mint changed the reverse design for proof coins and later circulation coins to a close AM version where the A and M are nearly touching, creating an almost invisible yet crucial difference that collectors use to identify transitional varieties. And somewhere in that transition period, an error occurred at the Denver Mint, where a reverse die intended for the 1993 close AM design was accidentally paired with 1992 obverse dies and used to strike a small number of coins, and those coins became the now famous 1992 D-close AM cents, each one an accidental hybrid of two different years' designs, an unintended overlap between old and new. But that's not where the story ends, because the coin that eventually fetched $40 million had more going for it than just the close AM variety. It also had additional striking anomalies that made it an absolute marvel to numismatists, including slight die rotation, evidence of a faint double die obverse, and a barely perceptible misalignment between the obverse and reverse axes, details that to the casual observer might seem insignificant but to experts represent a perfect storm of minting errors, each one layering rarity upon rarity. And in the coin collecting world, rarity multiplied by condition equals astronomical value. And this coin was preserved in a state so pristine that grading experts assigned it a near-perfect mint state grade of MS69 red, meaning it retained its brilliant original luster, immaculate surfaces, and razor-sharp details despite being more than 3 decades old. And that condition is what made all the difference, because most of the few known 1992 D-close AM cents show minor wear or toning from circulation. But this one looked as though it had been struck yesterday, a shimmering, copper-red gem that gleamed like it had been pulled straight from the minting press and sealed away in time, and collectors around the world couldn't believe their eyes when it surfaced at auction, accompanied by detailed magnified images showing that the spacing between the letters A and M was indeed the closed configuration, with the bottoms of the letters nearly touching, while the spacing between the initials FG, standing for designer Frank Gasparo, was also slightly different than standard 1992 D cents, confirming that this was indeed a transitional reverse die. But what's even more fascinating is that under microscopic analysis, specialists found traces of additional anomalies, including a micro-doubling on the word Liberty and a faint raised ridge along the rim, which they attributed to a collar clash, a rare event when the retaining collar that holds the planchette during striking slightly misaligns and causes metal flow irregularities along the edge, giving the rim a subtle but distinct beveled appearance. And this feature made it visually unique, further setting it apart from all other known examples. And because numismatic markets thrive on uniqueness and one-of-a-kind status, this particular 1992 cent quickly rose to the top of the collecting world, becoming the most coveted Lincoln cent of modern times, outpacing even the famous 1955 double die and the 1969 double die obverse in prestige and value. And while it may sound unbelievable that a penny could be worth $40 million, one must remember that in the world of high-end collecting, value is driven by rarity, historical significance, condition, and the passion of collectors who see these coins not just as currency but as tangible links to the history of American minting, technological evolution, and the human stories behind these accidental masterpieces. And it's worth noting that the Denver Mint, where this era originated, was one of the busiest production facilities in 1992, striking billions of coins, which means that the fact this transitional era went unnoticed amid such massive output makes it even more extraordinary. It's like finding a single needle not just in a haystack but in a field of haystacks stretching for miles. And as experts have pointed out, transitional eras are some of the most valuable in the hobby because they represent actual moments of change at the mint, real historical transitions captured in metal, and the 1992 close AM cent is exactly that, a physical trace of a brief moment when two designs overlapped in production, a fleeting mistake that lasted only days or even hours before being corrected, making every surviving coin a time capsule from that exact window of history. And when this particular example was authenticated and encapsulated by PCGS with special attribution for its transitional reverse, the coin collecting community erupted in excitement, because discoveries like this don't just add value, they rewrite the narrative of American coinage, they challenge assumptions about production accuracy, and they prove that even in the modern era, when quality control is tight and minting is automated, rare and spectacular errors can still happen. Now imagine the chain of events that led to this discovery, because legend has it that the $40 million penny was originally found in an ordinary roll of 1992 cents purchased from a small-town bank, the kind of roll people buy to search for collectible coins. And for years, it sat unnoticed in someone's collection until the owner, while comparing it to other coins, noticed that the A and M in America looked unusually close together, and upon further research, realized they were holding one of the rarest transitional eras in US coinage history. And that's when the excitement began. Experts were called in, the coin was submitted for professional grading, and the results confirmed its authenticity, rarity, and immaculate condition, sparking a bidding war among top collectors, investors, and even museums. And what started as a penny hunt ended in a multi-million-dollar transaction, turning an everyday coin into a symbol of possibility and luck. And beyond the close AM variety, there are subtle characteristics unique to this specimen that make it even more special, such as microscopic die polishing lines visible under magnification, evidence that the reverse die had been reworked at some point, possibly explaining why the wrong die was paired in the first place. And the luster pattern on this coin was also unique, with slightly radial cartwheel reflections that experts say are the result of high-pressure striking and fresh die surfaces, further proof that this coin was one of the earliest struck with that incorrect die pairing, meaning it represents the very beginning of the era sequence, and that first strike status is another reason why it fetched such an unbelievable amount at auction, because collectors prize early die state coins for their clarity and sharpness, the kind of detail that later strikes lose as dies wear down. Last 2016 1-cent USA coin. Today's story will take your breath away because we are going to explore the mystery, rarity, and incredible value of the 2016 1-cent coin that turned the numismatic world upside down when a single specimen was discovered with such astonishing errors and minting mistakes that it sold for an unbelievable $30 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 2016 Lincoln penny that you might have in your change jar or pocket could be worth millions if it happens to share the same rare features as this legendary era coin. And today we are going to break down every reason, every detail, and every possibility that makes this particular 1-cent piece so incredibly valuable. So get ready for a story filled with history, science, human error, and numismatic wonder, because the 2016 1-cent coin is a perfect example of how the tiniest minting mistake can create an artifact of unimaginable worth. Now, the first thing that sets this coin apart is its shocking combination of multiple rare errors all present on a single coin, a phenomenon that collectors call a compound error. And it's these combinations that drive collectors wild, because the odds of one error slipping through mint inspection are already extremely small, but the odds of several major errors occurring on the same coin and surviving quality control are astronomical. And that's exactly what happened with this 2016 cent, because during its production at the US Mint, a sequence of mechanical and human errors aligned perfectly to create what would later become known as the most valuable modern Lincoln cent ever struck. And it all started with the planchette, which is the blank piece of metal that becomes a coin after being struck by dies. And in this case, experts believe the coin was struck on a transitional planchette left over from 2015 testing batches that contained slightly different metal composition than standard 2016 cents, as it showed traces of bronze and nickel under laboratory analysis, instead of the expected copper-plated zinc composition, meaning this coin was accidentally struck on an experimental or leftover test planchette that was never supposed to be used for regular coinage. And this immediately caught the attention of collectors, because transitional planchette errors are among the rarest and most desirable, representing a direct glimpse into the internal operations of the mint during design or material transitions, and this anomaly alone could have made the coin worth thousands. But that was only the beginning, because when experts examined the coin further under high magnification, they discovered that the obverse, the side featuring Abraham Lincoln, showed a dramatic double die error, meaning the die that impressed the image of Lincoln had shifted slightly between strikes, creating a ghostly doubling effect visible on the letters Liberty and In God We Trust, as well as subtle doubling along Lincoln's eye and jawline, giving the image a shadow-like appearance that is highly sought after in the numismatic community, because such errors are caused during the hubbing process when the working die is impressed more than once but not perfectly aligned. And in modern coinage, these true double dies are extremely rare due to advanced laser cutting technology, making any genuine example from recent years exponentially valuable. And in the case of this 2016 cent, the doubling was crisp, bold, and unmistakably genuine, verified by multiple grading services and die specialists, which skyrocketed its status among collectors. And when we add to that the fact that this coin also exhibited a partial off-center strike, meaning the die struck the planchette slightly misaligned so that the design shifted toward the edge, leaving part of the blank planchette visible, it created a visual anomaly that is both eye-catching and rare, giving the coin a distinctive crescent of unstruck metal on one side, something that instantly attracts collector interest, because it demonstrates a clear minting malfunction. And as if that weren't enough, metallurgical scans revealed another mind-blowing feature. The coin was struck with unusually high pressure, resulting in a slightly concave shape and raised rim, possibly due to a malfunctioning press calibration, which caused the coin to have a unique three-dimensional look when tilted under light, with fields that gleamed differently from normal 2016 cents, and the reflectivity of this coin's surface was so pronounced that it almost resembled a proof coin, even though it was struck for circulation, further confusing experts and adding to its mystique. And then came the discovery that made this coin legendary: the reverse side, featuring the Union Shield design introduced in 2010, was struck using a misaligned or hybrid die that seemed to have been partially re-engraved, as subtle die polish lines were visible across the field and shield design, and closer inspection revealed faint remnants of an earlier die state underneath, suggesting that the reverse die had been reused or repurposed from a different production stage, a practice extremely uncommon in modern minting, leading experts to classify it as a hybrid die error. And this hybridization gave the reverse unusual texture and depth, as well as misaligned edges between the field and raised devices, giving the coin an unintentional artistic appearance that looked almost sculptural, and when the coin was viewed under ultraviolet light. Minor discolorations consistent with metal stress were found near the base of the shield and the denomination 1 cent, indicating a striking pressure inconsistency that may have caused microfractures in the die surface during minting, making this particular coin's combination of characteristics literally 1 in a billion. And when you combine the transitional planchet, double die obverse, off-center strike, and hybrid die reverse, you get a coin so unique that no other known 2016 cent exhibits even 2 of these features, let alone all of them, which is why this specific specimen went on to break all previous price records for modern cents when it sold at a private auction for $30 million, setting a new benchmark for contemporary era coinage. And it's not just the errors that make this coin valuable, it's also its pristine condition, because the coin was found in nearly perfect mint state, graded MS 70 read by professional graders, meaning it was flawless to the naked eye and showed no signs of wear, contact marks, or handling, which is almost unheard of for an era coin, since most era coins are discovered only after circulation or mishandling, and the fact that this one was preserved so perfectly made it a dream find, like lightning in a bottle, a perfect fusion of minting era, historical significance, and condition, and experts believe that this coin likely came from an early test batch struck at the Philadelphia Mint before full production began, perhaps slipping through quality control due to the high volume of coins being produced that year, since 2016 saw record outputs for the Lincoln cent as demand remained high across the United States, and amid those billions of coins, this one tiny outlier survived the presses, escaped the sorting systems, and ended up in a collector's roll where it would remain undiscovered for years, until one lucky individual inspecting rolls of 2016 cents under magnification noticed something unusual about the word liberty, and after submitting it for professional authentication, the true magnitude of the discovery was revealed, and from that moment on, the coin's story became legend, attracting attention not only from collectors but also from mainstream media, museums, and investors, because in the modern world of coin collecting, a contemporary coin achieving such astronomical value is nearly unheard of, making it a once-in-a-generation phenomenon, and the story gets even more fascinating when you consider that the Mint's own internal documentation reportedly showed no record of a double die or transitional planchet error being authorized for 2016, which means this coin's existence represents an accidental anomaly in every sense, a true minting mystery that has no official explanation, further fueling speculation and intrigue. And in the numismatic world, mystery equals value, because collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying stories, history, and the thrill of the impossible, and the 2016 1 cent worth $30 million embodies all of that perfectly, because every part of its identity defies normal expectations, from the planchet composition to the strike characteristics to its flawless state of preservation, and beyond its physical features. What gives this coin such emotional and historical power is the idea that something so ordinary could hold such extraordinary value.